Andrei Tarkovsky. I just spent the last 2 weeks engrossing myself in this man's work. I saw every single one of his feature films, including his student thesis film, The Steamroller and the Violin, and a documentary he directed of himself, Andrei Tarkovsky, A Cinema Prayer. It has been a long time coming. Like many young film fans, when I was in high school, I spent almost all my time just trying to catch up on old films, old directors, and Andrei Tarkovsky is someone I've been aware of since I was a teenager. But for some reason, I just never got around to it. Every single time I'd see a still from his film, or maybe a quote from one of his films, I would feel inspired. I would feel like a connection to it, which obviously is weird because I hadn't seen any of his films and I was ignorant to his work, to his voice. But for some reason, I always felt like I would respond to it, and I was right. I got a lot out of all his films. I can't say I loved all his films, but for sure, I never finished one of his films feeling like that was a waste of time. Every single one of his films does feel like I just went to like a film school almost. Like you could just feel that this is a legend. This is an icon because his films are just so different from anyone else's, especially in modern cinema. I just really love the way he would portray the melancholy of being a child, heavy philosophical ideas in his films, and also, of course, his art house style. You could just tell he pioneered the art house style, slowing things down, doing things in a very particular way. So I just want to get into what I've learned, what I got from his films. So what stuck out to me first and foremost were the themes, the subject matter of his films. His films are very heavy. Each one of his films, except for his first film, The Steamroller and the Violin, that's just a very cute short film, great student film, like definitely check it out. It's not like a crappy student film. You could see the legend in the making right there. But it's a very endearing film, and I still would recommend that. But the rest of his feature films, all very serious. They're all tackling heavy philosophical themes, and to my estimation, I think every single one of his films is tackling two major ideas: God and war. The love he has and contemplating God is so evident throughout his films, but also acknowledging the reality of the world, the corruption of man through war and through religion, through organized religion. You see that most notably in Andrei Rublev, but in all his films, those two themes are ever present. They're looming over every single one of his plots. He's examining the human condition. That's really what he's trying to do, which I feel like that's what a true artist does. That's what a true artist should do. Examine the human condition. Really ask those big, uncomfortable questions. You could perhaps not even provide any answers, but just asking the questions, making an attempt to acknowledge it. Because we're all human. This is a shared human experience, and I feel like that's what he's doing. And he doesn't just do the big ones, he also does the small ideas, the intimacy of the human condition. Love for art, or relationships, familiar relationships, the relationships we have to a place. He explores all those types of themes. He will focus on a specific one, but I feel like I said, it's like a central theme throughout his films, examining those very important ideas. And that is the point of his films. It's not the plot. For sure, his most straightforward film is Ivan's Childhood, which might be my favorite. I'm not sure yet. I need to rewatch all his films. Well, I've actually rewatched that film, but I need to rewatch the rest of them to really know what's my favorite or what's my top 3 or something, because I really responded to that film, especially its ending. But that's for sure his most straightforward, traditional film, like commercial film almost, even though it's a heavy war film. All his other films are straight up art house. Even a sci-fi epic like Solaris, that is still also very art house in the way he chooses to tell the story. His personal style is just inherently art house cinema. Based off of the documentary I saw and interviews I've seen, and just the way I interpret his films, it's clear to me that what's important to him is his ideas. It's the big themes. He doesn't want you to figure it out. He doesn't want you to try to understand the plot. I remember a quote he says in A Cinema Prayer, the documentary, that he says something along the lines of like, his films are not meant to be solved like a puzzle. They're just meant to be taken in. You just take in the film and contemplate. That's what he wants from you. That's what he wants from the audience. Not to get too hung up on what does that mean? What does that scene really mean? It's more like after you watch the film, what are you thinking of? And I feel like that's totally my experience. I left every film very stimulated. Like I said, his films are heavy, so everyone will have a different experience to the way they feel after each one of his films. Which brings me to his technical style, his long takes, the slow pace, the silence with a hint of water drops in the background, or my personal favorite, dialogue and or poetry laid over obscure shots of nature or characters. I think his entire technical style is all to craft an atmosphere, and I think that is truly his style. That is truly what makes him unique. The atmosphere he creates is truly like none other. It's to an extreme. If you've seen his films, you know he does some long takes of objectively nothing. Car driving for a long time with repetitive shots, or a man walking back and forth like in Nostalgia, and that goes on for well over a minute. And though, like I said, it's an extreme, and at times I did feel a bit bored. There were moments where I felt hypnotized almost. Like, there's a moment in Solaris where 45 minutes into the film, I literally had to pause the film because after all this atmosphere that was just washing over me, through me, I realized my thoughts were beginning to drift, but not like distraction, not like my thoughts went somewhere else. More like the film was just making me have ideas. It was making me contemplate. It was just making me, so it was subconsciously bringing ideas to my forefront. And I just felt the need to like pause the film and write these things down because the film was just really inspiring me. And even though I have like a weird relationship with Solaris, a part of me loved it and a part of me didn't like it. So I don't know. I need to rewatch it, like I said. I have that experience where it brought that out of me. So it's just like a weird thing. And it makes me wonder if this is intentional from Tarkovsky. Or I'm almost certain it probably is intentional. That is the purpose of this atmosphere. That is the purpose of these long takes, to bring you in, to really immerse you in his world, hijacking your eyes, hijacking your mind. Something is going on with the way he crafts the films that is really reaching the subconscious. And I feel like we're so used to most films where you're actively thinking about a plot, or you're actively thinking about a character's motivations. And I feel like here, because it's so slow, it's ruminating in the subconscious. I don't know. Maybe I'm losing it. I don't know. But his films, like I said, they did have that profound impact on me where it wasn't quite emotional like other films. That's probably why I prefer Ivan's Childhood, because I did have an emotional response to it. But I feel like there's something to be said for his other films that are slower, that reached me in a different way, in a way I'm not used to. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. And even though I didn't love all his films, I feel like I could still see myself buying all his films because of that very reason. I know I'm gonna want to come back to rewatch them. I know I'm gonna probably like once a year want to rewatch at least a couple of them. And that shows a true artist. There's so much depth, there's so much density inside his films. It's funny, I just finished talking about his technical style and I haven't even mentioned his cinematography. And it just goes to show you how incredible that he is as a filmmaker that I forgot to mention cinematography. And I feel like that's usually the first thing people mention, like, oh, the cinematography of a film. He's just operating on a higher level that it's just the cinematography is the last thing you think about. The sound design, the screenwriting, it's bigger. That's why, anyways, rambling. But yeah, his cinematography was very striking. Even in his student film, there were shots that I'm like very well composed, but it felt like a student film. Nothing felt very refined or steady. And his first film, Ivan's Childhood, immediately the lighting, that's what strikes me the most about his films. His lighting, the way he lights films, the way he composes shots, the blocking, the way he has the characters set up, it's all very intentional. You could tell every single frame in his films is intentional. I just love the way there's like this underexposed darkness in his films without being like you're watching season 8 of Game of Thrones or The Batman by Matt Reeves. Though I love that film, it's a dark film visually. And it's not quite like that, but there's just a lot of shadows. And I love that. There's like a texture to everyone's face. There's a lot of shadows. And like I said, there's like this underexposed softness, especially in Mirror, which that might be my second favorite. I don't know. But I love the way that film looks in particular. There's just such great composition in his films, and nostalgia in all his films, of course, but those are the ones that really struck out to me. The Sacrifice. Anyways, by the way, the 4K restoration of Nostalgia by Kino Classics, incredible. It's an incredible looking 4K. So Highly recommend it if you haven't seen that particular edition. To wrap up, Tarkovsky did not disappoint. He 100% met the expectations and exceeded in many ways my expectations of him, because obviously when you watch a classic, when you watch a legendary filmmaker, you have expectations, you know? And sometimes when you watch older films, they don't quite meet it, or you're kind of left feeling like, oh, I could see in for the times it must have been revolutionary. But I feel like Tarkovsky completely delivered. The era, the 60s, 70s, none of that was in my mind. Like, of course, dialogue would be a little bit different. Production value would be a little bit different if this was made today. But I feel like the voice, the style there is unique. So he completely did not disappoint, and I learned a lot, and I definitely feel inspired by him. I just feel like modern cinema can learn a lot from him. Like I said many times, he is an extreme. He slows the pace way down. His long takes are insane. They're not flashy wonders. They're not wonders to be studied exactly like other wonders. These are so simple, but like I said, there's something going on, I feel, in the subconscious. It slows you down in a way that for sure most people will not respond to. For sure, after 15 seconds, people will be like, what the hell's going on? And at times I even felt that. But I can see that there's something there. It works for some people. And I feel like modern cinema, keep it moving. That's how they are. Keep it moving. Like that famous behind the scenes shot of David Lynch, where I think a producer is like, maybe we should cut the scene, or maybe we should shorten that scene. And he gets triggered and starts yelling. What's everyone's fixation with cutting scenes? Freaking A, man. And I fully agree. I feel like modern cinema, everyone, it's like, okay, we've got the information we need, cut. Got the information we need, cut. And I understand it, but there is a beauty to letting things breathe. And I love dialogue heavy films. You know, I love David Fincher films. I love The Social Network, Aaron Sorkin, plenty of films I love that are very dialogue heavy. But there's something to be said. There's something to be learned from someone like Tarkovsky, who his philosophy was, I want to tell a story through cinematic devices. That is why it is cinema. So how can I tell a story that is unique to cinema? And if you're just using normal conventional writing and just some shots that are uninspired, just like, okay, characters talking, cars going, you know, you're not really utilizing cinema. And again, even though he's so extreme, there's a beauty there. There is a truly unique style there that I feel like so many filmmakers could learn a lot from. But yeah, I'm excited to rewatch his films again, because like I said, I did not love them all, but I responded to them in a weird way. I know it's like a weird paradox of how I feel about his films, but I'm sure many people would probably agree, because yeah, unless you're like a hardcore cinema purist that only watches art house, then I'm sure you won't fully agree with me. But if you're like me, who kind of watches it all, can get a lot from different forms of cinema. It's a more complex relationship with Tarkovsky. Anyway, rambled a lot there. Yeah, just wanted to share this experience because, like I said, it was a long time coming, and I was very excited to finally check him out, and I'm glad he did not disappoint. So let me know your thoughts on Tarkovsky, on your favorite film from him, your top 3 favorite films, and also after seeing my video, let me know a director you think I should check out that you think I might respond to, knowing everything I just said. So yeah, let me know. Thanks for watching.